If you're interested in art, architecture, antiques, ceramics, or even journaling, I think that you would like the Mercer Museum. I went there today and I drew in my sketchbook, and I actually had a new plan. Normally when I go to museums, I just try and draw all my favorite things and as many things as possible. But today I had the idea to just draw like a few things and leave space around each drawing. So then I'd be taking pictures and later I can print them out and collage them around the drawings. And this gave me so much freedom when I was in the museum. To be honest, I get a little bit frantic and stressed, feeling like I just can't draw everything that I want to. This just gave me more time to leisurely explore and enjoy it. The other thing that I liked about doing this is I always take pictures when I go to museums, but then they just get lost in my camera roll. I never really reference them later. So this way I'll know where to easily find them. Plus, it's like my own little curation of all my favorite things that I saw. I'm also hoping that this will help my memory later on. Okay, so let me tell you about the Mercer Museum. It was started by Henry Mercer in 1916, and it's in Pennsylvania. Henry Mercer was a really interesting guy. He just gathered a bunch of junk that people didn't want, and he had in his mind the idea of creating the Mercer Museum. So everything that you see there is from his own personal collection. And at the time he was collecting things, people didn't see those objects as valuable. It would be kind of like someone today collecting a bunch of outdated technology from the 80s or 90s. Like, I think that's really cool, but people were happy to give this stuff away. He mainly collected tools, which he defined as any objects that helped to meet human needs and wants. For example, there's a bunch of clock-making stuff, fishing tools, cast iron stoves, shoemaking stuff, pottery, lots of baskets, weather vanes, wagons, and so many books. He thought that observing and understanding these types of objects would help us understand how people once worked, lived, and played. What I think is really interesting is the way he cataloged everything. Every single item has a number on it, starting from 1, going all the way to 60,000. And then he kept a book tracking each object by its assigned number, and he would write where he got it, who he got it from, and any other information about the thing. Now, this is like a lot of work for how much stuff that he had, so it's important to note he did have a team of people to help him with this. The super crazy thing to me is that they actually wrote on the objects, like physically, permanently. The numbers are on there, and some of these objects are so old that when I saw the writing on them, I was like, no, how could you do that? But at the same time, I think it makes for a really cool viewing experience because you're able to learn so much information about every single thing you see almost. Like, if you can see the number, you can look it up because the museum has a copy of his notes in a binder. Plus, I like that everything is in numerical order. So if you see like a really low number, that's something that he got super early on in his collecting process. I find this museum so inspiring because I've been really into documenting recently. Like, I want to record my own life, my own things, and my family's things. I love that Mercer was able to preserve all of these objects that might have otherwise been lost or discarded over the years. And it's also just really cool to see someone's life work all in one place like this. In addition to this museum, Henry Mercer also started a tile company called Moravian Pottery and Tile Works, which is located on the same property as his house, known as Fonthill Castle. And you can actually visit all of these buildings. I've been to all 3, and they're all really crazy looking because they're made entirely out of concrete. They have a bunch of windows and they don't look like any of the buildings in the surrounding area. They just look like something out of a movie. The other thing is that Mercer designed them all himself. He didn't use traditional blueprints. He just had sketches and then would verbally describe how he wanted things to the builders. When designing the museum, he said, "The building is a secondary matter. It was made for the collection, while the collection was not made for it. The one and only objective of the whole work has been to permanently display, preserve, and enlarge what might be called a new presentation of the history of our country from the point of view of the work of human hands." And when you're in the buildings, you can really feel the intention behind the layout and its uniqueness. Even the smallest object feels like it's been so carefully placed. The buildings have lots of small rooms and like twists and turns and little staircases, so it really feels like you're exploring, which is super fun. Now going back to the tile company a little bit, it began in 1898, and this tile company put Mercer as one of the leaders of the arts and crafts movement in the US. He wanted to maintain handcrafts during a time when machine production was becoming very popular. He designed all of the tiles himself, or he created created adaptations of historical artworks, but I think it's interesting that he didn't consider himself an artist. He called himself an archaeologist and artifact collector, and the main goal of his tiles was to storytell. A lot of them are arranged to recreate fairy tales or biblical scenes. The tiles were all formed by hand using either the stamp mold process or the press mold process, which both allow the pieces to hold a lot of detail. The other cool thing is that they're not just traditional like squares, they're really unique shapes or silhouettes, and Mercer would arrange them in different compositions, so when you're touring one of the buildings, you'll see like the same figure represented in so many different ways, which I think is really cool. So when I finished my sketchbook page, it was really cool to see everything that stood out to me together in one place. I feel like it just makes my tastes and interests really pop out, and I'm super excited to do this process again at another museum. Let me know what you like to do when you go to museums, if you like to sketchbook or take notes or whatever the process is. And also let me know if you've been to Fonthill or the Mercer Museum. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!